It's 1975, and the National Skateboarding Championships are well underway. Scores of highly skilled riders are impressing judges with their 360s, handstands, and nose wheelies. The notorious Z-Boys from Venice walk towards the freestyle area. Their radical and unconventional skateboarding style has made them local legends, and the only girl on the team is about to disrupt the competition and make her mark.
Knew I couldn't go back.
Changes your
You just
life.
put it out there.
She said you've got less than a year to live.
Just dug even
Luck
deeper.
is the residue of design.
Nobody else was doing it, so why couldn't I?
That was the turning point.
Welcome to the BUCKiT Podcast with Phil Keoghan. Every week I talk to mavericks, disruptors, and innovators. People who ditch the excuses, swerve off the predictable road, and epitomize what it means to tick it before you kick it.
In skateboarding, it involves when you're trying, sometimes you'll hit the concrete and you just go, well, I'm going to do this.
Peggy Oki, the only female member of the original Zephyr Competition skateboarding team, was made famous in the award-winning documentary DogTown and Z-Boys. The talented and unconventional Z-Boys were rebellious. Their style influenced and radically shaped the skateboarding culture of the 1970s and became the trademark vertical skateboarding that led to today's X Games. Peggy Oki takes us back to the Dogtown days and her life in a culture where she learned to fight and take the hard knocks for what she believed in. Life lessons she needs today in her crusade to help save dolphins and whales all over the world. This is Peggy Oki, and we are talking in Los Angeles, California. California. Peggy, I want you to take us back to 1975.
Okay.
Pick up on the story without giving away the end. But
Okay.
a pivotal moment in your life, it seems.
Our team, we got into a few cars and left early in the morning, drove down to Del Mar for our first skateboard competition together as the Zephyr team. When we arrived, we saw this polyurethane coated wooden platform, and that was supposed to be the freestyle area, and we thought, this is interesting. This is not the streets that we're used to skating on, but we'll work on that. And then there was also the slalom course, which was not an actual hill that was paved. It was a man-made wooden hill slope. We thought, wow, this is all very artificial, and this is going to be interesting. And we had already practiced several of the standard tricks, things such as the nose wheelie and the 360, that we'd spin. And
Yeah.
But then we were already in this whole mode of surfing as if we were skating as if we were surfboarding.
Yeah.
Surfing. And so we just skated the way we wanted to in the competition.
I mean, you guys were really ahead of your time because you were doing things that people, they hadn't connected maybe that movement with the idea of skateboarding. Because I look at the way you were moving and nobody was moving like that back in 1975. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I would say we really admired really the more radical up and coming surfers of the time, like Larry Bertleman, and he was known for very low style, carving around on the wave, doing cutbacks and things. So we emulated that, and we called that move the Bert.
That's good.
B-E-R-T is
Yep.
Bertleman, and so we did things like that, as well as being able to do the previously typical tricks. And so we proved ourselves as, we were going to do this, and we were going for it with even more
Kind of
more
fun to
surfing
be.
style.
Kind of fun to be on the cutting edge of something that became part of the zeitgeist, right? Where you're not necessarily reinventing the sport, but you're reinventing the way that the sport or that activity was done.
Yes, we reinvented the movement of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't sort of this sort of stiff clickety-clack movement
Yeah.
like the previous
Didn't
tricks.
you do
and things.
like the original skateboarding technique was sort of tap the board?
There were things like this, and we were able to do that too.
Right.
But we also were more into the flowing movement.
And you had such a beautiful flow on the board, like you almost like you were dancing, and that flexibility. People, when they first saw what you were doing, what was the reaction to it?
I got some grief
Yeah?
from some of the other
Why
other
were they giving
girls
you grief?
because I wasn't necessarily doing every one of the formal tricks that were previously done, and maybe they felt threatened or something. I don't know.
But it looks so beautiful. I mean, when you see the footage now, do you look at that and just go, wow, we really were doing something unique? Did it feel like that when you were doing it?
It did, and it was just enjoying, just having fun, moving as if we were surfing. It was the love of surfing, and surfing is so great. The feeling of dropping in on a wave, and the exhilaration of it, and then making a turn on the wave. And so we really aimed to emulate that. We lived in an area where the surf was not that great. So it was,
which was where?
Santa Monica area.
And because people think of Santa Monica, they think great surfing, but it's not
that good.
It's not that good.
So,
so you guys were doing things on concrete and on asphalt and over curbs, and so yes, you've got the movement, but it's pretty unforgiving if you mess up, right?
We would have our falls, but we would get up and keep working on it.
and so in 1975, were there a lot of girls skateboarding?
Not really.
I'm sure there was a lot of admiration too. I mean, they must have looked at you and thought, wow, that's so cool to see a girl killing it like that.
Yeah, it was funny because I think so. I didn't really think too much about it, and then it was when we'd seen each other after the documentary was released, and we'd be our adults now, and I'd hear one of my teammates saying, Peggy used to go really fast down those hills and things like that. I'm going, oh, they never said that to me when.
And no helmets, right?
No helmets.
No helmets. You could just taking these huge risks.
Yeah.
When you look back on that period,
Mm-hmm.
is it? Do you smile when you think about it? What do you remember of that era?
Yeah,
because it was groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of fond memories of it. This. Things when a few of us members of the team we'd all put the word out. Okay, we're going to meet and we're going to practice at this school, or we're going to go down that hill, and we'd wind up bombing some hills together or jumping over the fences of the schools together. and
so there was
skating.
a rebellious part of it that you kind of liked.
Not that I necessarily liked jumping over the fences, but I was good at it.
Yeah, good at jumping over fences.
Climbing over fences.
And good at skateboarding.
Yeah, I was pretty good at climbing over fences.
So and I
still am.
Back in the day, what was your favorite thing to do? Bomb a hill, or was it to do tricks in a pool? Or
I liked skating the banks of the schools a lot, because there were some really nice banks, and it was a lot like surfing, where you're on a continuous wave just moving up and down. And
so give us a picture of what Dogtown, and when we refer to Dogtown, I guess maybe start with, what is Dogtown, or what was Dogtown?
The Dogtown kind of came up, to be honest, as a name that was given to the area. We just knew it as the Venice area.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty rough neighborhood at that time.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't so safe at night to walk around, and you wouldn't want to be around there alone at night.
Well, Venice, they say,
it's kind of seedy.
Yeah, the Venice, Venice Beach, Santa Monica Bay, they say now is the biggest, if not one of the biggest, tourist attractions in America. Like millions of people come there every year. And when you go there, it's this idyllic, it almost looks like a Hollywood movie set.
Yeah.
And yet
full of characters.
Full of characters. Yet I understand it wasn't that long ago that the old piers that dated way back into the 30s, the remnants of those piers were sticking out, and it was this gnarly place where, like you said, it wasn't safe to walk around. What was it about Dogtown that made it conducive to the birth of this new skateboarding style?
We all had this part of us that wanted to express ourselves, and that was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
To be expressing ourselves, because as in the documentary, they said that a lot of the team members came from broken homes and things like that, and I wasn't from a broken home, but I was very happy to have that opportunity to express myself through skateboarding. So we would come up with, like I said, different ideas and places. And
how did you discover skateboarding? Do you remember the first time you ever got on a skateboard?
it was when I was very little.
Yeah.
I was about 7 years old, and this was back when there was a manufactured skateboard.
Yep.
And they sold them at a store, that's large department store type of place that was similar to our modern day Target store. Yep. And they were called the Black Knight.
That was the name of the board?
Yeah.
The Black Knight.
And they came with these wheels that were basically sort of compressed sand or something. They were like, I called them the Fred Flintstone wheels because they're very hard.
and not very forgiving.
No.
And not a lot of grip. I understand they were kind of slippery.
Yeah, but it was the main thing was that anytime you hit a little pebble, your wheels would stop. And then the passenger would go flying.
Yeah, and it wasn't like falling into a wave.
Yeah.
It was like falling on
It's hard.
concrete.
Yeah.
So how does Peggy then make a transition from being this, street skater as a tomboy young woman, and then being invited to skate with these phenomenal young skaters as part of the Zephyr skateboarding team?
I had just started surfing maybe less than a year before, and since the waves aren't that good around the Santa Monica area, as I was saying,
So you keep saying, yeah.
there was skateboarding, and the wheels became safer, the urethane wheels. So I thought, why don't I practice my surfing moves on a skateboard? And I was practicing down Bicknell Hill, the famous hill that we...
Bicknell Hill, which people who come from Santa Monica to Venice, they know it
They've
well.
got to see Bicknell Hill.
That's quite a run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was skating down that hill just to keep my surfing motions in practice. And one day, a young boy came over to me and said, on a skateboard, and he said, "Would you like to be on a skateboard team?" And I went, "Oh, I guess, yeah." And he said, "Come to the Zephyr shop," and I think that he was probably sent by one of my future sponsors, who probably had seen me skateboarding and said, "Tell that girl to come over."
Be a part of this.
Yeah.
So you get invited on the team, and how old were you at that point?
I was about 19 or 20, around that time.
Okay, and
I was the oldest member of the team.
You
The
were you really?
matriarch.
Are you serious?
No, I was the oldest member of the team. There weren't any other girls on the team, and I didn't feel any kind of odd vibes or anything from the teammates. We just all were so focused on skating and wanting to skate, and it was exciting that we were on a team and getting our skateboards for free. And
Yeah, so is that how it worked back then? Basically, you got free stuff?
yeah.
Yeah, that was the deal,
about it.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say, you guys look so cool. For those people who haven't seen the documentary, Dogtown, it was brilliantly done, really, really beautifully done.
Yeah.
And the footage, what a treasure for that footage to exist, right? And, and for it all to be encapsulated.
Yeah, it was really, as you say, brilliantly done.
It
and
really
so
was.
it's wonderful to see that as a reminder of the fun times that I had. It's like I say, it's a walk down memory lane whenever I see it.
It talks about the Dogtown back in the day, back in the 70s, and a drought really helped to push, I guess, the realms of possibilities for this and the skills of all of you as skaters.
It was definitely a fun
There's
time.
something about watching it that makes me want. I wish I was there to see it. It just looks wild and free, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have ever had the nerve to go bombing down a hill like Bicknell, but I sort of wish I could have seen it.
Well, this other hill is even steeper.
Is that right?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that street, but I was going, that looks really familiar. I think that's the one we used to bomb, and we used to keep an eye out, watch out for other cars and warn each other, okay, it's clear, And so...
How'd you stop, by the way? Because it just comes to a T intersection at the bottom, right?
I don't remember how we stopped. I think that we just would try to time it with the lights or something. So...
Oh, you time it with the lights, you'd be going through the intersection?
I think that's how we did it.
Sounds a little illegal to me.
Especially now it would be.
What was the camaraderie like between you all? Were you kind of maybe pushing each other? Like you'd see somebody do a trick, they'd see you do a trick, and then you were wanting to emulate that and take it up a notch. How did that all work?
It was just this energy that was just this ever expanding sort of energy. We would climb over the fence and get into the school and start skating the bank, and we'd all just take our runs. We'd take our turns and watch each other and just keep going and going. And that's where, when people asked me about, well, how did you feel as the only girl on the team? Did you feel isolated or something? And I'd say no, because we were just so focused on the energy that was generated, that whole excitement and pushing each other just by doing our own thing, pushing ourselves. And it was really great because at an event a few years ago, one of my former teammates, Jim Muir, he said, yeah, Peggy used to go really fast down those hills.
So it's a real endorsement that you were legit.
It was really inspiring and fun to watch them. Jay was so fluid. That scene in DogTown and Z-Boys at the Del Mar contest when they play the Jimi Hendrix song.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but just take us back to that time, because in the film they sell it so well as this really crazy romantic time where there's a drought in Los Angeles, and the pools are empty basically around Santa Monica and Venice, and so this then opens an opportunity for what?
For the boys to climb over the fences, empty the pools.
Like, how did you go empty somebody's pool to go?
I did not empty any pools.
Okay. You just skated them.
Well, actually, I did not. This whole thing about skating the pools was very, very hush-hush.
Yes.
Because, these guys were trespassing.
Yeah. Well.
And so I didn't hear, I was hearing about it. And then one day Jay called me and said,
and Jay is
Jay Adams, my favorite teammate, and he calls me, he goes, and he didn't have a driver's license at that time. He was too young to drive. So I was the chauffeur. He'd call me sometimes, oh, we're gonna meet at this school, we're gonna do that. And so I'd pick him up and we'd go. And he goes, there's a pool in, I forgot where he said it was. I go, okay, and I went and picked him up, and then we went to this pool, just he and I, and we got into the backyard, and it was square, but we tried it, and it wasn't very good.
Soon, the Z-Boys were scouring neighborhoods all over Los Angeles for oval-shaped pools, dragging with them hoses and water pumps to drain them out. It was in these empty backyard pools that this small group of radical skaters took their sport to an entirely new level, pushing each other to go higher and higher, a move that gave birth to the vertical skating we know today and featured in the Extreme Games.
By the time that the boys, were skating the dog bowl, the famous dog bowl that was in the documentary.
Yes.
I believe that I was already out of the scene by then, that I'd already moved up to the Santa Barbara area to go to UCSB and do my thing there. So they had that great time.
Yeah, it was really mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
What took place.
But I kept skating. I was skating on the campus.
Okay, so you're out. Once you're out of the skateboarding scene, you go back. You continue with your studies.
When I was still at UCSB studying with the interest in studying animal behavior, I was an environmental biology major and taking different classes, and I really felt very still connected to my concerns about environment and saving the environment and my love for whales and dolphins. And so I started, of course, doing paintings of dolphins and whales and wanting to convey, hopefully, an increase in appreciation about them. When I was going for my degree in painting at College of Creative Studies at UCSB, I went, I dropped out, ages before, went through various junior college programs and studied different forms of the arts, and then ultimately went to College of Creative Studies and to get my degree in painting. But in my senior year, I learned about this thing called environmental art.
We need more people like yourself who are creating awareness. And I know now you live in spend some of your time in my home country of New Zealand, and you're doing something to help protect dolphins. And I wondered if you could tell us about that. I know the Hector's dolphin, which is it's a smaller dolphin. My understanding, it lives off the coast of Canterbury, near Akaroa.
South Island.
In the South Island.
Seen pretty much around most of the South Island, I believe.
Yeah.
That the Hector's dolphin, Cephalorhynchus hectori. That's
you.
the world's smallest dolphin.
And how are they doing? How's the Hector's dolphin doing?
Oh, the Hector's is listed endangered.
And why is that? I mean, New Zealand, you would hope that they would be wanting to protect them. There's an isolated part of the world, down the bottom of the world.
The primary cause of death, over 90% of the cause of death of the Hectors and the subspecies Maui's dolphin,
Yes.
which is found only on pretty much the west coast of the North Island. The primary cause of death for them is drowning in gill nets through the commercial gill net fisheries as well as recreational gill netting. So they're called set nets that the recreational fishers use, and they have these stakes with the gill net, and they stretch it across, kind of like a volleyball net, I guess you could say, but on the level of the water, and they set them out there during the high tide, and the fish come in, and then they get caught in the gill nets as the tide goes back out, and sometimes those stakes become unsettled, and then they get washed out to sea, and that's when the dolphins get caught in them. That's one of the ways, but I think it's more so the commercial fisheries using gill nets.
So
gill net trawling.
Gill net trawling. So it's off the back of a boat, and it's being trawled down right on the surface of the underneath.
I'm not exactly sure how far below the surface, but it is the gill nets because they're literally invisible once they're underwater.
It's
very hard
made
to
out
see.
of a like a
monofilament line.
Yeah, which
like
is the same
fishing
as fishing line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fine. And then what happens is the fish, their gills get caught, and that's why they call them gill nets.
So, of course, dolphins need to surface to breathe, so they literally just drown. Is that what's happening?
I would ban the use of gill net as a technique in the entire known habitat of the Maui's dolphin, and then implement alternative fishing methods and support the fishermen in using alternative fishing methods.
And what would those be? Are they as efficient as the existing method, or what's the resistance to doing it a different way?
I think that it still goes back to the government not having the will to finance the change.
To helping the fishermen make that transition.
Because there are conservation organizations that have been involved in actually studying and proposing these alternate fishing methods that are very viable.
And being cognizant of the fact that the fishermen still need to make a living, right? Because that's the challenge
solution.
Always, isn't it? It's you can't just
economics
rip people's
and things. Yeah. And so there are alternative fishing methods that are safer for these dolphins, and it's going to take some money to do that, and for it to become law to manage the situation as far as this type of fishing technique. So
what is it going to take? Is it going to take a change in government? Do you see any hope in the change with the New Zealand's got a new government now? Do you feel like there's some hope there, or what?
I've been feeling some hope with the new government. I'm still not seeing the action, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because with the previous government there was very little hope, and hopefully with the new government, which had promised that they would look after the Mauis, that they'll follow through on their promise.
What is it about these dolphins living that's so important?
Every species has its role, and when you start taking out one species that has its role, then something's going to happen. There's going to be a hole, a void basically in the whole key of things, the whole way things work. I tell people that they can just look into their heart and think about what they care about the most. And I say that, while I'm campaigning to save dolphins and whales, it's not that I'm trying to get everybody to come and save dolphins and whales. Of course, anybody who cares about them, I'd love for them to participate. But there's a lot of things going on the planet that can use some help. Things like youth programs, getting kids out, and doing things besides watching TV and playing video games all the time. Well,
starting from such a young age where you were part of a movement, now you're part of this environmental movement. But, clearly there's something in you that you have some passion, you have some desire to be a part of change. And I guess whatever it was you learned back in those DogTown years, you've taken that into now your passion for environmental science.
Yeah. It's I say that really it's about passion and tenacity.
Yes.
You have to be tenacious if you're a skateboarder.
So let's
You hit
just
the concrete and you get back up.
let's go back to that time in 1975 when you were a part of this movement and this change. Great training maybe for the tenacity you need now to where you are sometimes, I guess, feeling like you're hitting the pavement and you got to get up and go again. And also just the idea that you were a woman and times have changed dramatically. I think of the world that my daughter's growing up in compared to, say, she's about around the age you were back in 1975. Very different world.
I would say that we were just really inspired, as I said, by other surfers because we really wanted to be surfing, and we loved those more radical styles that we were seeing, and so we were inspired by something, as I've been inspired by dolphins and whales, and then we had this passion to pursue that expression of what we really were inspired by, and in skateboarding it involves, when you're trying, sometimes you'll hit the concrete and you just go, well, I'm going to do this, and you're just so determined, you're going to keep going. And that's how it is I ask people to just follow that passion. Look at what inspires you and follow that passion. It can be very discouraging. There's a lot of bad news. It's always bad news. There's tons of bad news out in the world. But there's also good news.
Yeah.
And I love those victories. I embrace them when I read something in the news and things that have happened over history. Whoever imagined that the Berlin Wall would come tumbling down,
right?
Or that after over 40 years, apartheid in South Africa would end.
Yeah.
So
change can happen.
Yeah, and then in the realm of caring about animals, in over 19 countries, 20 countries now, at least 20 countries, the use of wild animals has been banned in circuses. Times are changing.
That, I guess, leads us to another passion project for you right now, which is Lolita. Is that correct? And tell us who Lolita is.
Lolita is a lone female orca that lives in the Miami Seaquarium. She was captured almost 48 years ago. August 8th, 1970 was the date of her capture.
And how long does an orca typically live for?
Well, there's estimates that the females live roughly about 50 to 80 years.
Okay.
And the males don't live quite as long, at least the resident orcas that have been studied in one area. And there was a female orca that was recently presumed dead, passed away, because they hadn't seen her enough times, to go, oh, she was always hanging out with this other orca, and we haven't seen her, and her name was Granny, and she was about 103 or 104 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And the female orca that is presumed to be the mother of Lolita is about 87 years old right now.
So there's a good chance that Lolita will live a very long time.
She could.
Yeah,
yes.
She's got those genes.
Yeah.
So she's currently captive. And you want to change that.
I do. I learned about her and I felt really deeply moved about her story. And
so what are the chances that Lolita is going to get out of captivity, and can an orca like that be released back into the wild? I mean, do they know how to survive?
Well, there's a number of scientists, marine scientists, cetacean scientists, who have said, and I agree, that it's a case-by-case basis, depending on where an orca was born. If they were born in captivity, they don't have the cultural connection that's required to survive in the wild on their own, and they don't have their pod that they originated from to be reunited with. But Lolita, who is also called Tokite, that's her original name.
Tokite.
Tokite.
Is it a Japanese name?
No, it's a name from the area of the Pacific Northwest where she was taken from.
A Native American?
Yeah, and it means, there's a few interpretations, but my favorite one is Beautiful Lady Shining Waters. Because the veterinarian that looked after her when she was captured was very impressed by her, and he said that she was very courageous and a very special one. And she is special because She, besides one other female orca, is the longest living in captivity. All of the rest have died very soon, like within 10, 15, 20 years of capture. So
these animals just don't belong.
They don't
in captivity.
But she is amazing, and she inspires me.
Is she? What's her spirit like? Is she? Do you feel like she is depressed, or is she? What's her state of mind like? I mean, is she suffering, I guess, is the question.
Well, she's been alone for over 38 years since her tank mate basically killed himself. The Miami Seaquarium purchased her to be a companion for a male orca that actually came from the resident pods of the Pacific Northwest, and they named him Hugo. They thought, well, let's have a companion for Hugo. So they brought in Lolita, Tokite, and he just couldn't stand it. He kept bashing his head into the wall of the tank.
Couldn't stand that she was there?
No, he didn't like being in that tank.
Just being in captivity.
In the very tiny tank. If you see the aerial photographs of the tank that she's in, and she actually was sharing that tank with Hugo. How can two orcas fit in there? But they got on fine, and they even understood each other. They had the same dialect, but he kept ramming his head into the wall of the tank and died of a brain aneurysm. So from
this
the time,
this is incredibly
sad.
Yeah. So what are the chances that we can get Lolita out of there?
I would say, I call it bring on the Blackfish effect.
Yep.
For people who've seen the documentary Blackfish, I can't say millions, but lots of people, thousands of people were moved by that. Millions of people saw the film, and it had a severe impact on SeaWorld's attendance.
Yes.
To where they reported major losses due to lack of attendance. And that's what we need to do as far as bringing attention to the corporation that now owns the Miami Seaquarium.
Now, you were saying that there have been people who've been prepared to buy Lolita from this corporation to release her, well, and they're still not wanting to let her go because she's worth so much.
Yeah, there was a man who a long time ago offered $1 million to the Miami Seaquarium to buy her and release her, and they just said no, thank you. That was under a previous ownership. Now, in the last few years, it's under a different ownership. It's a company based out of Newport Beach, California, Palace Entertainment, and they own 21 theme parks in the United States, including Sea Life Park, which is in Hawaii, where they have captive dolphins. And then they're like a part of Parques Reunidos, which is in Europe, and that corporation under their title owns 39 theme parks. And so this campaign that I'm currently running is a boycott pledge letter writing campaign.
Please don't go.
Yeah, where people are pledging that they will, in this letter to Palace Entertainment and Parques Reunidos, that they will not go to any of their 60 theme parks until Lolita is released.
So again, if people want to be a part of Lolita's release, where would they go for more information?
They can go to the website, and I have a special page for Lolita. It's www.origamiwhalesproject.org/Lolita, Lolita.
But if they went, I guess, to Google and they just put Lolita orca, it would probably show a link to the website as well.
If they did Lolita and 16,425 days a slave, I know that's a tricky number, but if you think of the number of days in 45 years,
yes,
all you have to do is multiply that and you get 16,425. I came up with that idea because it was getting to be 45 years since her capture.
It does put it in perspective when you think of it that way.
Yeah, that many days in a little concrete tank. And
well, we need people like you in the world just to bring awareness to what is happening, because we all get caught up in our lives and we forget. And
it's easy to get distracted by different things.
It is, but it's people like you that help to create awareness, and that's part of the reason we wanted to have you here, because we wanted you to be able to share your story, and hopefully there's some people being inspired listening.
And it's people that are creative too.
Yes.
That start thinking, oh, what about this idea? Because there's been this going on for so long. What kind of solutions can we think of?
It would be nice if we got back more to the idea of giving back more than the focus on taking, because it's not sustainable. We can't just keep taking. You know, in general, perpetuating the idea that collecting material things is what we should all aspire to.
I think that when we follow our passion and want to do something positive, that we get so much back from it.
Yeah. Can we go back to now the 1975 and this championship and
okay.
I want to finish your story.
Okay.
So I want to talk about, you guys are kind of, I guess, surprising everybody with your weird styles, and they're thinking, who's the Zephyr team and what are they doing? So take us into that moment and what happened that day.
We showed up and we saw this platform, and we had no idea that's how it was going to be, that was our surface, this limited space, and just proceeded to do what we'd been practicing doing, that we love to do, and we skated as if we were surfing. But we also did our tricks too. I know I did. So I did 360s and nose wheelie. And
what was it like with the other girls there? I mean, how did they respond to you and your, I guess, slightly outrageous style for that time?
Well, I think that because they were still in the mindset of the old tricks, and that's all they were doing, and then they saw that actually, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but my style was more fluid. Yeah,
and it was unbelievably fluid. It looked like dancing.
Yeah, and that was how it was with the boys on the team as well. And so they saw what I was doing, and they saw that I got a lot of points, and I was winning the freestyle.
And what did they say to you?
Some of them complained. None of them said anything to me directly, but a couple of them went and complained to the judges. And one of the judges said that I had more style than a lot of the guys. Not necessarily the guys on my team, but the guys skating. Because they complained to the judge and said that I was skating like a guy. She's skating like a guy. I know.
What does that even mean?
I know.
What is skating like a guy, skating like a girl?
I wasn't fitting into that female girl role at that time of wearing a skirt and bare feet on a skateboard and doing, the little la-la tricks and stuff.
You were too much of a tomboy for that, right?
I was.
You want to take more risks. Yeah. And so what happened that day?
I won the freestyle. Competition. Yeah. And I didn't win the slalom, though I really believe I could have. Our team was doing so well and basically taking just turning things around, that I think that there was some politics going on where they didn't want me to win both events. And so when it came to the slalom, I know I qualified because I went both times. There's 2 qualifying runs that you get through the slalom cones, and I made them both. And there was no other woman that did it both runs successfully. But I was not advanced into the finals.
After that day, skateboarding changed in a way forever, because once people saw that you guys were winning with that kind of more street approach, that everybody was like, whoa, we need to do that. Do you feel like that was a pivotal moment in skateboarding?
I think that it was an eye-opener to a lot of people that were still skating in the realm of doing the tricks the way they did. Slalom was already going on, but then because of the style, there was this opening of this, what are they doing? And, they're skating on some not flat surfaces, banks, that's at places like schools and things. And so then it eventually evolved into pools.
You're part of changing history.
I suppose.
I have a couple of questions I'd love to ask you. What would you do with your last day on Earth? If you knew that tomorrow was your last day, what would you do with it?
I would probably hop on a jet and go to my favorite place in the Southwest, in the desert, the red sandstone desert. Climb on top of one of the formations and go, yeah, this is it.
Peggy, thanks so much for talking to us.
Yeah,
really appreciate
thank you,
it. You can watch this podcast online at philkeoghan.com and let me know what's on your bucket list. You never know, you might be my next guest. Don't forget, tick it before you kick it.